To sell something. You're here. My arm.
Good morning, real estate investors. How's everybody doing today? And welcome to the only podcast that's committed to helping as many people as possible to set themselves free. I'm Scott Jelinek, the author of The Art of the Slow Flip. And for anybody who's interested, we are giving away free copies. If you go to slowflip.com, SLOWFLIP.com, you can go ahead and get yourself signed up for a free copy. I have a guest on today who is local in my market. You guys may already know him. I want to tell you before I introduce him, I want to tell you something about him that is incredibly inspirational. And I want to tell you, he has a YouTube channel and I just checked this morning to see where it's at now, with 121,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. And one of the things, and I don't know if I've ever even told you this, Kris, one of the things that was so inspirational about that is you literally made a decision one day that you're going to do this, and you did, and you started doing it consistently every single day. But what I loved, not only your consistency, what I loved is you didn't have fancy backgrounds, you didn't have any fancy softwares, you didn't have anything. It was just you looking at the computer and talking. And I loved you always start off with a hello, class. And I loved it. And the people love it because I look at the amount of views you get. And so anyway, I'm sorry for rambling on. I want to go ahead and introduce you to Kris Haskins in my local market. Welcome, Kris. Thank you for being on.
Thank you, Scott Jelinek, one of my mentors, friends, somebody that I admire, and I've been watching you for years too. We've been trained by the same people, and it's just such an honor to be hanging out with you today, my brother.
I'm thrilled to have you. I don't know if I ever even told you about your dedication. And I know we're not going to talk about your YouTube channel today, but your dedication to your YouTube channel has been so inspiring to me because I've done YouTube long before you did, and my channel is like this big. And the reason is because consistency. I would do it for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and then it would fall off. Where you did it, and I think you still do, every single day there was content and long form content, and I mean, it just rocked it out because when the consistency and you have your following, and I look at the views, I mean, and the people love it. And so you teach on all different topics, but today, I think what we were going to talk about today was what you're doing, your thing you're doing, what you do really well with, which is Section 8. Is that correct?
Yeah, let's stay at the channel real quick before we move, Scott. I think I think the channel is successful. Not only let's put me aside, whether I'm charismatic, I'm a sexy guy, I'm good looking. Forget all that stuff. But it's all about, and we're going to get to that in this training here. Who are you serving? I believe that I have a specific person that needs to hear my message. 30 to 40-year-old guys haven't bought any real estate, looking back over their life, spent all this money, got to figure it out. That was me. I think there's a lot of me's out there.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And what I also love, and again, I know we're not just talking about your YouTube channel, and you can say what it's called. I just type in Kris Haskins Real Estate.
Kris Haskins, really kick, yeah.
But one of the things I love about it is it's not just one topic. It's not just one thing. You've gone through so many different things, even just finances. You've gone through so many different topics, which I really think for the people who follow you and who watch your videos is so not just inspirational, but educational for all the different avenues you take it down. So before, I know we want to talk about Section 8. Before we get into that, I started to ask you before, and I said, we'll just talk about it online. You just built a house.
I did, man.
And you moved into it. So tell me the story with that, because that is not something that people get excited about. You're excited when it's time to move in, but the building process could be a challenge. So tell us about that real quick.
I never forget when I first broke ground. I know we went to see a baseball game, and I told you I'd be done in March, and you're like, "Yeah, I'll see you on Mother's Day." So luckily that didn't happen. But yes, so we built where we live in the area that I live in is just the educational systems aren't that good. People getting shot up a lot. It's a rough area of Hampton, right? So I'm like, I gotta get out of here. So we moved to Chesapeake. It's a much nicer area. The property values are a lot higher, and hopefully I can find my neighbors and people have the same values, morals, and stuff. So my wife, we were looking. I got to tell you, Scott, during the pandemic, I've been trying to move for 3 years. So we look every house I went to see that had 10 cars in the driveway.
Yep.
By the time I got there, so I'm like, you know what? Let me take myself out of that. I'm a blue ocean guy. Are you familiar with the book?
Yep.
Red Ocean. It's just no fun, right? So I'm like, the blue ocean. At least I know we got a few guys that have cash to close in a week on some land, right? So I know I can do that. So not a lot of people have capital sitting out there they could buy the land. So my wife found this land, and boom, started building it. It's 3,600 square feet. And I never did anything this large, like magnitude. And it was actually really fun as long as you got the right contractor, Scott.
Well, and this is a big part that I always wondered how my wife would be with new construction, with picking everything out. Because you, like, when you buy a house, you're buying what someone else picked out. You can change stuff, but when you're building a house, you have to pick out every single detail of the house. And so, how did she do with that?
Time consuming. Well, I think it's good when you have the right wife and you give them. I think with the female energy loves to have things to do anyway. They want to just make it homey and all this stuff. No disrespect to my ladies, but yeah, giving them little tasks to do and go to Lowe's and look at stuff. It really was fun for to watch my wife do that stuff. I was like, you know what? I'm hands off. I've
I would have
picked
been
out
hands off too, because once it's done,
thousands.
then it'll be awesome, exactly the way she envisioned it. But it's the putting that vision out there that takes a minute.
We know how we go, Scott. We go to the Lowe's and Home Depot. I'm like, whatever the hell's on sale, let's get it. Boom, let's go.
Yep. So let's talk about Section 8. You've been
Yeah.
doing, tell me how long have you been doing, you've been doing real estate investing for how long? Let's start with you. Before we even get into Section 8, let's talk about you, Kris. What's your history? What's your background? How long have you been doing real estate investing?
Yeah, man. So I was in the music business I got fired from Hampton University in '99. I've learned that I just couldn't work for anybody. I had 7 jobs. I got fired from all of them. And I used to look back, I would be crying, licking my wounds. I thought it was me, right? But when I look back, oh, no, I thought I was messed up. I couldn't fit into this system of working. And then I learned that it wasn't necessarily me, it was the system. And I had to be an entrepreneur. I just had to be, I wanted to work for somebody, but I just couldn't. So they fired me. That was the last job I was fired from. Went into the music business. We got a couple platinum records, made some money, made a ton of money actually. And then a couple years later, I went completely broke. This is for all my people that follow me. I went broke, $80 in my pocket, living on my friend's couch because I didn't understand how money works. I didn't know that you had to have income streams and multiple and passive and all that stuff. I just thought once you made $100,000, you made it.
You're rich. Yeah.
So
You see it all the time. You know that people that get money, all of a sudden wealth syndrome, they call it.
sudden,
And
yeah, that sounds
yep,
good. It's
yep.
terrible, man. So you think when you have money, when you first get it, you're like, well, I made it. I got money. I'll always have it. Doesn't work like that. So I lost it all. And I think everybody probably will have to lose it all to understand that. And then I found real estate. That's when I found Lonnie Scruggs, and I found Trig in 2004. I'm like, you know what? Let me get educated. And I find that building it slowly, it lasts. I don't know why it works like that.
And time, it's amazing how much better. I just had this conversation with somebody this morning. It's amazing how deals over time become exponentially better than they were when you started. Between the pay down of the mortgage, between the increase in the monthly payment. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just as time goes, you just feel smarter and smarter. You're like, well, that was a marginal deal when I got it, but that's a kick-ass deal now.
We were talking about that one this morning. I'm like, damn, do I want to spend 50,000? And then you're like, Kris, it's a great deal.
Yeah. And that's why I was asking how much it would get a month, because I said if you just calculate the return on your 50, I said it's a great return. And so
No doubt.
it's going to be a
No
good deal,
doubt.
worthwhile.
Yeah,
So
man.
go ahead. So then what kind of deals do you do now? So I know you rehab because I see you posting pictures of it. So you do rehab, and what else do you do?
We do rehab. I love the slow flips, like you point that. We do Section 8. I do lease options. I do new construction, renovation,
You do
creative
it all.
financing. Yeah, everything. Whatever comes in, man. Whatever
So you
comes
do it
in.
all. So what kind of Section 8 is your big thing that you've been doing now,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
tell me how your Section 8s are working. I know it's certain parts of the country people love them, certain parts of the country people hate them. I feel
Yeah.
like it's all the same thing, so I'm not sure why that is. So
Me
you
neither.
primarily are buying and doing them here locally in Hampton Roads?
Oh yeah, we got a bunch of them. Well, let me tell you what happened to me in 2000. I was in the business '04, right? 2007, I started renting out, and I'm like, tenants would stop paying. They pay late. They would say they're going to pay and then not pay. I had to go evict them. They'd be running. I had to go to court. So I started making mortgage payment. Wow. I don't know if you remember Troy Titus back in the day.
Of
The
course I remember him. He
strategy.
was my lawyer.
Oh, okay.
He was my lawyer. He was my first lawyer. He used to be president of Trig back then. I don't know if you remember. He was
He was
president of Trig, and he was my attorney. And
good
for
Lord.
anybody who's watching who doesn't know the name Troy Titus, you can Google him. He's in prison now, doing 30 years. But yeah, he was my attorney. And it's interesting because a lot of times I think of things that I learned, and I'm like, wait a second, I learned that from Troy. I better research and make sure that that is in fact legal, because I remember where I learned it from. But anyway, I'm sorry to cut you off, but go ahead. Yeah, I
You're
remember Troy.
good. He was teaching a strategy: buy a house, have negative cash flow for a year, and sell it. That was a. I'm just when I saw that, I'm like taking notes. My house. Cool. Okay, let's do it. And I did it. And I was made $50,000. I'm like, cool. This is real estate.
Yep.
So I did that a couple of times. Then 7 hit, and everything went crazy. So I bought a bunch of them. Couldn't sell them, so I started renting them out. Right. So then people stopped paying the
So you
private.
bought them with the strategy that Troy taught, but now sales stopped, so you're stuck with them. I got you.
Stuck
Okay.
with them. Yeah. Remember no doc loans and all that
Yep,
stuff.
absolutely.
So I got these properties. I got to turn them into rental properties because I had negative $100 for a year. Didn't sell it. It's just when I look back, I'm like, Kris, what's that? He had to be ludicrous to teach that. Scott, I mean, I'm no doubt you heard the strategy before.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
But that's in a major appreciating market. It was working. You did it in the beginning. It was working and when you're going up 25% a year, which is what they were doing then, you're like, hey, just hang on. Yes, you might be losing $100 a month, but you're making 50 grand on the ad sale. And so
I think that strategy still does work in some areas. I met a guy that's doing that in West Coast. Was that top of the Seattle? That's what he does. He's like, I get negative cash flow, then I make 100 grand.
it's musical chairs, because once the music stops, which is what, once that appreciation stops, whoever's left holding it is the one who's going to lose.
Yeah.
And so it does work, but it's musical chairs.
So I rented it out. I found out how challenging private pay tenants can be, especially in the Hampton Roads area. You got a job today, you lose your job tomorrow. And I always tell my people, like, look, if you do private pay tenants, conventional rentals, it's just a matter of time before something happens to their income. It's just life. Every one of mine, and I'm chasing them down. And I was in the bed, I'll never forget, with my wife. I'm like, Kris, you have to grow up, be a big boy, and figure out how you can get rent coming in, or you're not going to be in business for long. We got $1,000 here, mortgage payment. Next thing you got $3,000 going out every month, $5,000. I think about all the mortgage payments that I've paid, Scott. I wish I could have donated all that money to somebody. It just hurts me. So I did. Finally, I'm like, you know what? Let me get educated. Let me at least find out. I want to partner with the biggest, baddest business in the land, the United States government. Can't lose. So, I learned it, put my first tenant in, and from there on, I'm like, this is just cream on top. This is icing on the cake. The government pays every month. I mean, as long as you get the right people. I told myself, once again, I have to convince myself. I don't know about you. I got to just talk myself into doing things. So I said, look, there's got to be a tenant out there, a Section 8 tenant, that would love to meet somebody that respects them, treats them with dignity, gives them an apartment that is fixed up and is welcoming, as opposed to a slumlord or somebody that's going to look down on them for being on Section 8. And what's weird is they showed up. They showed up right to my door. They want to be respected. They want to be treated right. They're just ordinary people that don't want to be looked down upon.
And so you've been doing Section 8 since then, since 08, 09?
That's when I got in, Scott. I'm like, I'm done. No more private pay. They'll drive you. That's why I lost my hair.
Yeah. So, I hear people say sometimes, and I always have the same answer when they're like, when they say, oh, I've never had an eviction, or I've never had a bad tenant. And my answer is always the same. I'm like, either A, because they try and act like you just didn't screen them good enough. Right. Uh-huh. And my answer is always either A, you don't have enough properties, or B, you haven't been doing it long enough, because you will have bad tenants. That's just part of the business. Even good people, like you said, lose their job. It doesn't matter how good-hearted you are. If you don't have the money, you can't pay. It happens.
Yep. Happens. My saying is, look, it's just like you said. It's a matter of time. If you work for somebody, it's a matter of time. You get transferred or whatever.
So I had obviously massive experience with those tenants as well, not Section 8, but with the defaulting, the people trashing properties and all this.
Private pay.
That's kind of what converted us to the slow flip model, which is along the same lines, because it's their home, so they take care of it, they treat it good, and they very low turnover because it's their home. And so with you transferred into, you still do slow flips, but transferred into Section 8. And so tell me, you still buy them. So run me through your typical numbers on what you buy them for, what they bring in a month, and how all that works.
Yeah, well, I don't, sure, I've had so many, golly. I haven't acquired a new Section 8 tenant since COVID. Well, let me rewind. I haven't bought a property to actually put them in. These are ones that I've just bought over the years. Turned them over. So I guess you could still buy them. Like, I don't buy them to say this is going to be a Section 8 tenant now in my life. I do slow flip. I'm like, I don't even want to deal with that. I mean, I'd rather just do a slow flip.
I love, the more I talk to people about slow flips, it's funny because I have people that when I first started talking about them way back in 11, 12, 13, they were so against it, even 5, 6 years ago. And now they're like, whoa, tell me more about that. I know we talked about it years ago, but I think I want to do it now. And I'm like, the biggest regret people have is after time goes by, you wish you had started back then
Mhm.
because now's the date it would have been paid off. And you have to live with that. You can't,
Mm,
you can't beat out time from the time you start. It's going to take you some years to get them free and clear. And so
that's a
it's
good point.
interesting. But I
But
have
if you
friends that do Section 8 that love it. I mean, they bring in a lot of money and
now
it's
they do
clockwork. It's clockwork. First of the month, every single month.
every month. So if we were to buy them, I mean, usually between well, shit, prices have just changed so much. I can't, I mean, you can't even say 150 now. Scott, affordable housing is 250 in our area,
I
right?
know. Yep. It's one of my local students just recently renovated a house on in Truxton. I'm trying to remember the name of the street. And it was a street. It's not a good street in Truxton, right? Well, one notoriously not a good street, but she renovated it and she did a fantastic job. And it sold on the market, I think, for 269. And
Good
this was an
lord,
area where we're buying them for 30 grand not too long ago. It
I
sold for
remember
269, and I'm like, that's affordable housing. That's
that is affordable housing.
269. That used to be a
Hmm.
nice house. When I bought my in the year 2000, when I bought my first big house, and I say big, but it was only 2,300 square feet, but that was a big, nice house in Salem Woods. I paid 159 for it, and when I bought it, I was the highest price sale in all of Salem Woods. But I bought it because somebody owner financed it to me. That's why I picked that one. But at
That's cool.
159, and that was a big, beautiful, nice house. And I'm like, man, now 260 is the
That's the
low end
go.
affordable housing. It's
So if
crazy.
you are if you want to do Section 8 for your listeners, so yeah, all you have to do, man, because I coach people too. They want to know how do I know how much rent I'm gonna get. All you have to do is go to affordablehousing.com. Used to be gosection8.com.
So Section 8, right?
Affordablehousing.com. They changed the name, and just type in search as if you were a tenant. Just type in because it has landlord or tenant. Just type in tenant, and you can see what 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, bedrooms, what people are already getting. It's crazy because just 3 years ago, a 3 bedroom was $1,300. Now
What
a
is it
three
now?
bedroom's 2,000.
Oh,
Scott, I'm getting $2,000 for a 3 bedroom house, brother.
wow.
It's
And
something. So
that's crazy.
I couldn't believe it too. You know how I found out?
You
Went to
went on the site.
affordablehousing.com, went right there. So what I do? Put mine up there for 2,000. I got 10 applications in the first 2 weeks. 10.
Wow.
This is
That is
one we listed.
crazy.
I listed this one last month, and because I hadn't listed one since the COVID hit, because nobody, government was paying.
Nobody was moving.
Tenants ain't moving. No way. They ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. Wow. Unless you were buying new ones, there's nothing to fill. Nobody was moving.
Yeah, and even then, I think people, obviously you should get into it, but I'm a big fan of if you could do a slow flip, that trumps. I have to say slow flips here. It's Section 8. Section 8 is done.
Well, but they're different. Like I said, I know people who live and breathe Section 8. So and to me, I'm like, I don't want tenants because the thing is with Section 8, now Section 8, there's big money in it. You're talking $2,000. But when the sink leaks, you're
You gotta
ultimately
fix
the
it.
landlord. You got to take care of it and you got to renovate and you got to make it right. And
Yeah.
that's why slow flip fits my personality where I just want to collect checks, process payments. That's it.
Hmm.
With Section 8, they might be more money actually, but you are a landlord. You still have to have that
You are.
running above business where the air conditioner went out. I got to have a guy I can call to go take care of it. Where with slow flips, we don't do any of that. So I guess it depends on your skill set and your mindset and what you want your life to look like.
Well, I think it's a little. I think that is true. Let me just piggyback on that a little bit, Scott. Like I think what you said with your lifestyle. I'm talking about the landlord. Let's just talk about the average American. They're not going to have 100 houses, over like you. They might have three or four. So they might want to maintain it over time. Think about
Right.
their retirement. If they cash out in 10 years, like you and I, we're constantly looking for deals, deals, deals,
Right.
deals. An ordinary person, I always think about the person that just wants to think about their retirement. I don't know if they want the house to be run down because, well, let me ask you, a slow flip, I know some of mine have, they can get run down over time.
So it goes both ways. Some of them have been run down, and some of them have been completely renovated. New
Yeah.
roof, new windows, poured driveway, siding. I'm like,
But let's talk about general. Let's talk generally speaking. You're right about that. It could be you got both ways. But let's say on a 40,000 foot view, Scott, do they generally get better or do they get worse?
um, I lately I would say they're generally getting better.
Getting better
Now, but
after
I have
COVID.
had some. I had some get significantly worse. Right? Like I'm
Hmm.
like, holy crap, what did they do? But even with that, I didn't renovate them. I sold it to
Yeah.
somebody as is, and now they renovated them.
Yeah.
And so, like, I had some. I go in and it broke my heart. I'm like, oh my god, this was in better shape when they got it, and
Yeah.
then they left. But then we market it exactly as is,
Hmm.
and the next person now is the one who now renovates it and makes it their home.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. But I can
So it's
see.
50-50? You saying it's 50-50?
I think we have a higher percentage now of people that improve them.
After COVID, though.
Probably after COVID, yeah.
Well, okay. Well, nobody knows where the market's going. But before COVID, it was like housing was everywhere. But now it's like I have to take care of what I have almost, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. It's
I
great
agree
because
with
I have
that.
0 vacancies. I have 170 houses now. I have 5 more pending, and I have 0 vacancies, and we never have any. I mean, we'll get them, and it's gone in a day. We get it, it's gone in a
Gone
day.
in a day.
Nothing sits available anymore, period.
Yeah, it's something, man. The real estate market's like gold now, brother.
Yeah, I know, and I'm thankful for what I have. One of the things you said that was interesting is somebody who's retiring and doesn't want it to get run down. The flip side to that is I have people that don't want to do slow flips, and this where Section 8 might be a good avenue for them. The reason they don't want to do them, and it always intrigues me, is because they're fearful of what if they buy.
Yeah,
They're like, well, what if they cash me out? Then I lose my house. I don't want to lose my house. I'm counting on that money every month,
no
and it
doubt.
always intrigues me because I'm like, but you bought it at wholesale. We sold it at super retail. If they cash you out, you just scored. Now go buy 2 or 3 more with that money. But you're saying, and you're right. And the people who are just older and retired, they don't want to have to go buy more houses. They just want that monthly money coming in every month. So they're not like actively in the business. So I can see the flip side to both sides. So do
Yeah,
you
that's true.
teach Section 8?
Yeah, I've got the landlord's guide to Section 8 housing. We'll give your people a link there too if they want to invest in that. It's going to walk you step by step how to locate the tenant, how to screen them, how to get the house inspected properly, and get them moved in. It's 4 modules. So the inspection, location, pre-screening the tenant, get ready for inspection, moving them in. Those are the 4 legs.
Now I have a question. So you only do it in this market. Is the rules for Section 8 the same everywhere?
I have a personal friend that is a caseworker in San Francisco. So she actually helped me put this thing together, man.
Oh, nice.
They're not. I don't want to say they're all the same, but from A to Z, generally speaking, if you kind of
I
go
mean,
through the
people are
4,
people. So the locating them, finding good ones, all of that's going to be the same.
yeah,
I just didn't know if the compliance rules were the same. I think they pretty much are, but I'm not 1,000%.
it's HUD, man. So you got HUD is going to be nationwide, but yes, some municipalities will allow certain things. For instance, I've had where I've rented out a unit with no stove, right? The tenant brought their own stove. So I know in another municipality that you have to have the appliances in there. So little things could be little nuances, but nothing major.
Gotcha. All right, interesting, interesting. And I know this isn't what we were talking about today, but I'm always curious about it. You like to do and teach trusts, right?
Oh man, yeah.
So does that present anything different with Section 8, or it's just who they make their check out to? It doesn't do anything. It
No, they
doesn't do
don't
anything.
care. I've never asked. They've never asked me who owns the property ever.
I always find that so interesting. Do you know?
Why?
Well, because I'll tell you what, in court, I have in court, anyone, I can go file right now. You just built your house,
Uh-huh.
right? I can go file an eviction on you.
You can.
And if you don't go to court and defend it, the sheriff will come and evict you. And I think it's
That's
insane
true.
when that nobody checks who owns the house. And as you said it, I was thinking about that scenario because I had it happen one time, not just like that, but I had a house that I had purchased subject to probably 12 years prior.
Uh-huh.
And then this guy surfaced. He must have saw it on his credit report and said, I still own the house. And so he went to the house and knocked on the door and told the people, I own this house, start paying me now. And they called me and freaked out. And I said, no, they don't. Call the city. I own the house and yada yada. So anyway, so they didn't start paying him. They kept everything as normal. He went down and filed for eviction.
Unlawful
And they
detention.
got served the papers. And I didn't have to, but I hired an attorney for them and again, they showed up, showed the paperwork, and it all got dismissed. But if we didn't show up in court and if we didn't
Default
defend it,
judgment.
the sheriff would have came and evicted them.
Default
And I think
judgment.
it's
Yeah.
crazy that there is no check on who actually owns the property. They're just like, nope, we'll take care of it.
Well, hopefully I feel that most people are generally good. You
Most
get one
people,
out of.
most people. It only takes one that's not. I'm going to go file eviction on you today, Chris.
You could, man. You're absolutely right. You could.
No, I'm not filing nothing, but it's
My
interesting.
friend I had her friend that got evicted one time. He didn't pay his mortgage, but I mean, it just happens, man. It happens.
Yeah. So tell me what's new and exciting in the world that you want to share that you think people need to hear about.
Well, I'm doing crypto now, but your audience probably isn't interested in
No,
that. I
tell us.
wish.
The reason I did a little bit, and I'll tell you my story. Although I made money on it, but right after I sold it, it shot through the roof, and I was like, but I still made money. But I'm not against it. I don't do it because I don't understand it, for one.
Yeah,
And number two is I feel like I'm so dialed in on what I'm doing with real estate that
good.
every time I look in another direction, even
I
when it works
lose.
out, I'm like, I should have just done what I know. But tell me about what you're doing with crypto. I'm curious.
Well, we just have different companies, and I didn't even know this. Did you? Crypto does have utility. It can be loaned out to people, and they can use it in different things. So I just have few. It's so weird how you can give them. You have to give it to them in crypto and convert it over. It's not like a high-low thing. They use it, and then they pay you interest. So we make one of the outfits we make. It's amazing. I'm getting paid today 3% a week. It's crazy how us real estate guys are 3% a year.
Week.
We're at 3% APR, right?
Right.
I'm just imagine you can just shrink that APR, Scott, into a week. So if you got 10 grand, you're making, what is that, $300 a week?
So how could it pay 3% a week?
I don't want. Yeah, I wouldn't. Well, I sent you a text a few weeks ago. That's just one. I got another one that pays 25% a month. So I'd like to show that to you too, Scott. It's private only. You can't even go to like the web. They don't even have websites to go to. You have to be invited to get into this thing. But that you asked me, what am I doing? That's what I'm doing, right? So I put thousands of dollars into it, and every Friday, man, they do direct deposit. So that's one. I'm doing crypto. Other thing is I really want to understand how this internet thing is working. I really think that people need multiple streams of income, and solid streams, Scott. Not like a private pay. Well, do you do private pay tenants, Scott?
Zero. I have 0 tenants.
See, so talking to you is like, I mean, we're almost the same. So I just want your viewers to know that if you think you're going to get into real estate and just put a for rent sign in the yard and get carpet and paint and have it all nice and people are going to come in and pay you rent on the first of the month. Does that happen, Scott? I don't know.
It does happen, but you can't scale it. Like if you have one house or you have 5 houses, it's possible that you have 5 good tenants and you can go on for years and years and never do an eviction and everybody takes care of the house and and is smiling and planting flowers, and that's all possible if you have 5 properties or you have 2 properties or whatever. But if you get into having any kind of scale, the law of averages is going to show up. It's just going to happen. No matter how you screen. Everybody's like, oh, you need to screen better. I'm like, listen. Anybody with bad credit had good credit before they stopped paying. Anybody with a criminal record had a clean record the day before they got caught, right? So just because their record's clean doesn't mean they're not a criminal. It just means they haven't been caught yet, right? And so everybody's like, oh, you need to screen better. I'm like, well, that's great. That's great up till today. It doesn't mean that's great for the future. But that's just my
You're like a master of it's all good until it's not.
It's not. Right, exactly. Hey, this is from life experience. You're the same, Kris. It's all those plans sound great until they're not anymore.
But that and private money, man, I got to tell you, I mean, it's amazing how it's just so much money in the system. People, when I hear people say, all I need is the money, all I need, I used to hear that and believe it. But now when you start peeling back the onion, it's really not a money problem. It's a strategy problem. It's like,
or an education problem.
Education. Well, strategy, education kind of go together.
Right.
When I look at what they've got, I'm like, even if I were to, I ask people all the time, Scott, if I were to give you $100,000 today, what is the plan, right? So for me, I'm going to put it, okay, I got this house, boom, boom, we'll do that. It's almost like I've got things ready to go if you show up with money. And what's weird is when you have things ready to go, money shows up. It's crazy.
So I literally just had this, I was in St. Louis this past week. I bought 5 more houses out there, and I am blown away by slow flips out there are readily available for $20,000, $25,000 that we get $875 a month for. And so it blows me away because I'm like, why don't these people buy them themselves for the 25 grand? And the answer, and this is what you were just saying about private money. The answer is education. They just don't think to go borrow private. They say, well, a bank won't fund me, or my credit's not good, or I don't have a job on the books, whatever stories they tell themselves. But yet they can give me $3 grand down and $875 a month. So they could afford to buy it if only they learned what you just said, and they learned to raise the private money, fund it, and then pay it off in 5 years instead of paying it off in 30. It's all education. And that is why I love teaching people this, because our our students are doing exactly that. We're getting in the middle of the seller and them, where we're helping them by buying it, pay the seller cash,
That's
even
good.
though my student didn't have any money. And then we're selling it to them without having to come up with the cash through financing. And so everybody wins in the scenario.
That's
But
good stuff.
but I'm always thinking it's all education. Just like you
It's all
said, the money
here.
is out there. It's just a matter of learning and doing it.
It's nothing, I look at, I've got like a million bucks now that I have to deploy, right? And once you get to a certain level in your life, your listeners, I want them to understand it's not about earning. Earning money can be done. I promise you. It's about how do you know how to manage? Do you
Yep.
know how to manage what the hell you have? Because you can keep earning. I learned that I couldn't earn my way to rich. I had to manage what I had, Scott. Is that true for you?
Yeah, you have to. And almost it's almost a burden. And you just said something that struck me when you said, "Oh, I have this money I have to deploy," right? You have to deploy. You
It's
have
in
to,
your
because
head.
if you don't, now it can go away. You have to put it out there. And I always, this is one of the things, one of my sayings I'm always telling people is, I said, you can never spend your money, you can only spend the money your money makes. And
Yes.
so look at that $1 million. That's exactly it. That might seem great that you have it, but you can't spend it. If you
No,
spend it, it's gone. You
it's
have to
locked
you
up.
have to deploy it, and now the money it makes you can spend if you want,
Yeah.
but you can't spend the money itself. You can only spend the money that your money makes. And so you have this new burden
Hmm.
that you have to now find investments to deploy this money, which,
Yeah.
for me, it's always real estate, because I know
Me
what I'm
too.
getting back.
Yeah.
But you have to deploy it, because then it can make you $1,000 a month on each one of these $100,000 you spend, and
Yeah.
that money you can spend. But if you
The
spend the
children.
million, well, now you're back to square one, starting over again.
Well, the richest man in Babylon always says, "Well, you can only spend the children. I mean, the children's children. Don't
Yeah.
spend So,
Yep.
but private money. If you ask me what's new and exciting, I've literally, Scott, sitting here on my desk. I got $150,000 from my IRA and my kids' Coverdale account. I have to. I'm literally looking at this. I ordered these checks for a closing, so I'm trying to just understand, man, because once again, earning, I just think that we don't, in our culture, we don't put any emphasis on managing this stuff,
Right.
managing an IRA, managing a 401k. All we want to do is what? Earn it, give it to the asset manager.
So,
Fidelity,
Chris, I want
Vanguard.
to tell you something I just learned this weekend, and you may already know this. And it's interesting because I've been doing this since 1994, and I'm still learning new stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, and you just talked about IRA and all this different stuff, and I have all of that going on. But something I wasn't aware of, which you probably are, I don't know, is when you have a self-directed what do you call it, a health savings account,
Yeah, I don't
right?
have one of those. Yeah.
I don't. I used to have one, and I had to cash it out during the bust because I needed money to live. But I did something different. I just had a health savings account back then. I didn't realize, and I just was taught this past weekend, that you can have a self-directed health savings account that actually does deals.
Mm,
And another way, earning money tax-free
tax
and
free. Yeah.
getting over the limits. And
Hmm.
and then I looked on Equity Trust. I went on their website and they offer it self-directed. I'm like,
They
one
got
more
it right
thing. Now
there.
I need to set it up, and I'll start doing, even if you just do 1 or 2 or 3 deals a year in there,
Just
that'll
do
be
one.
another 60, 80 grand that's tax-free, and it sits there. And I think you have to be 62 when you can take it out tax-free.
Take it out.
But I was like, well, I never even heard of that. I knew about health savings accounts. I didn't know you could have a self-directed health savings account. And
Self
so
directed. That's
it's
cool.
constantly, like you were saying, it's constantly learning
Yeah.
and new ways to manage, because the biggest part of managing, which we didn't touch on, and there's no way we have time to touch on, is taxes. The
Yeah.
biggest thing, the smartest thing we can do for ourselves is not just manage our money, but manage taxes, because
Yeah,
otherwise
man.
it is
We'll
amazing
eat
the
it
amount
up.
we pay out in taxes.
We'll eat
I,
it up.
I
We'll
get
eat it up.
crushed, and I'm working every year. I'm like, okay, I need a new strategy. I need a new strategy, a new strategy. And I'm working on it. And I have a lot going on, but just not enough. Not
You're gonna
enough.
like this crypto when I show it to you, man. No doubt I'll show it to you soon, but you're gonna love it, man. You're gonna love
Yeah, I definitely want to see it. All right, so Chris, you give us some words of wisdom, some parting words. How can people get in touch with you if they want to follow you on YouTube or whatever it is that
it.
you have
Yeah.
going on out there?
Best thing is comment on my videos. Go to Kris Kris Haskins on YouTube. I'm on Instagram all the time too. I would love to hear from you. See how we can help you raise your financial literacy through real estate investing and entrepreneurship. My parting words would be: listen, I wasn't taught in my culture, in my community, we weren't taught to manage large amounts of money. And I know it could be intimidating. It's amazing, Scott, when I look back and I think what I used to think about 100,000 10, 15 years
Yeah,
ago. And now I'm like 100,000. That's all. I mean, that okay. It's almost like it's no money. Right? It's just no money. So I think my culture needs to embrace handling large amounts of money. And we put ourselves down when we think, well, my culture, we don't have any money. We're broke, we're poor, we come from whatever. But I promise you, we have the money. We're spending. I work with some guys that sell shoes now, $500, $600, $700 shoes. People are buying them like this, Scott, all the time. And I'm like, man, if we could just pull the money together. Don't think you have to go it all alone. Work with people. My team is just rock solid now. Go out there and work with other people. Now, obviously, it's not always going to work. Things ain't going to work out. But don't let life beat you. If you get a bad partnership or a bad deal with somebody, cut it, move on. Work with people and try to get around people that are wise and handling large amounts of money like Scott.
That is fantastic advice. And I love it because it's not just about you. It's about anyone can do it. You just need to align yourself, educate yourself, and align yourself with the right people. And if it didn't work out the first time, which I'm speaking for you, I'm speaking for me, and just about everybody I know, it didn't work out the first time.
No.
You can go back to whatever you were doing before, or you could move forward and make it lifelong, lasting, forever. And so I absolutely love it.
Do you run into, I gotta ask you a question quick. Do you run into more people that are scared to make, like, they want to do something, then they're like, they even have the money, but they just don't pull the trigger for whatever reason?
Yeah, a lot of people are like that, especially when it was a one-time way they got the money. If they earned it, through doing whatever they were doing, then you have the mindset of, well, I earned it, I can earn it again, right? But when it was a one-shot deal and they either had a house that went up that they owned and it went up and they sold it and have a couple $100,000, or they sold a business that they worked on for 20 years. And so that was one shot. Now they're really scared with that money because they know it took me 20 years to build this business. And if I invest this wrong, I'm back to square one. And so I get it, but that's where education comes in, and, baby steps, and you got it. But you have to put it out there. Like you said, you can't, you can only spend the children. You can't spend the actual money.
All
right. Well, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you, Kris. I appreciate you coming on. And we tell once again, you said a website where someone can find you at.
Yeah, just go to Kris Haskins, KrisHaskins.com. If you're a landlord, you want to do Section 8, you can just go to section8money.com. That's where the landlord's guide to Section 8 housing is. It's going to walk you through that stuff. So I want you to, don't be like me. Don't lose every month. I felt like I was going to Las Vegas. Who's going to pay? They don't pay. That was crazy, Scott. All right.
I wouldn't mind going to Las Vegas every month, but I get what you're saying. But I'm a gambler. But all right, Kris, thanks for coming on. Have an absolutely fantastic day. And everybody out there, remember, do something today that your future self is going to thank you for. I will see you guys on the next one, and have a great day.